Imagine standing in front of a mirror, staring into your own eyes and knowing, deep down, that you have broken something that can never be repaired. Not just trust, not just a relationship, but a part of yourself. Betrayal is not a single act. It is a wound that cuts both ways. The one who is betrayed may feel the pain first, but the one who betrays will carry it forever in ways they never expected. There is a certain kind of loss that comes from betraying a good soul. It doesn't hit immediately. At first it might feel like an escape victory or even a necessary choice. But as time moves forward, as life unfolds, the reality of what has been done begins to settle in. Not all losses are loud. Some are silent, creeping in through the quiet moments, through the spaces where someone once stood but now no longer does. And when that realization strikes, it is often too late. A good soul is not like the rest. They love without conditions, they trust without hesitation, and they forgive without keeping score. They are the kind of people who see the best in others, even when those others don't deserve it. They give their time, their loyalty, their heart, not because they have to, but because they believe in the goodness of those around them. And that kind of goodness is rare. It is a gift, but like all gifts, it can be taken for granted, misused, or worst of all, betrayed. The price of betraying a good soul is not always immediate. Life does not always deliver instant consequences, and karma does not always strike where we expect. Instead, the weight of betrayal builds slowly. It seeps into the quiet spaces of the mind, into the moments where there is no distraction to drown out the truth. It shows itself in relationships that no longer feel as deep, in happiness that no longer feels as fulfilling, in successes that no longer feels as fulfilling, in successes that no longer carry the same joy, because no matter how far one runs, there are some things that cannot be outrun. The moment of betrayal is just that, a moment, but its impact lasts a lifetime. It changes the one who was betrayed, making them more guarded, more hesitant to trust. But it also changes the betrayer, leaving them with a burden that does not fade with time. Some people realize it early, others much later, when the silence of the one they wrong speaks louder than any words ever could, and by then the damage is done. This speech is not about punishment or revenge. It is about understanding the true cost of hurting someone who only ever meant well. It is about realizing that some things, once broken, can never be made whole again. And most importantly, it is about the choices we make. The ones that define us, the ones that shape our future, and the ones we will have to live with long after the moment has passed. Trust is one of the most fragile and valuable things in the world. It takes years to build, moments to break, and often a lifetime to repair. When someone extends their trust, they are not just believing in your words. They are placing their faith in your character, in the person you have shown yourself to be. A good soul doesn't give their trust easily, but when they do, they give it completely. They believe in the goodness of people, sometimes to a fault. They see the best in others and choose to stand by them, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. This kind of trust is rare, and it is something that should be cherished. Yet, when that trust is betrayed, the damage is often irreversible. Betraying a good soul is not just about breaking a promise or telling a lie. It is about shattering something deep within them. Their belief in you, in humanity, and sometimes even in themselves. The moment you betray someone who has given you their trust wholeheartedly, you take away a part of their innocence. They may have believed in loyalty, in honesty, in the idea that people stand by each other no matter what. But betrayal forces them to question everything. It makes them doubt their own judgment, wondering if they were foolish to have trusted in the first place. It changes them. They may still be kind, but they will never be as open. They may still care, but they will hesitate before they give their heart so freely again. The act may seem insignificant in the moment. Maybe it was a small lie, a broken promise, a moment of weakness. Maybe it felt justified or necessary. But the truth is, betrayal doesn't just affect the person who is betrayed, it also changes the person who commits it. Because once you break the trust of a good soul, you will never be seen the same way again. The warmth in their eyes, the certainty in their voice when they say your name, the way they used to stand by your side without question. Those things don't come back. Even if forgiveness is given, even if words of reconciliation are spoken, something will always be different. The foundation has been cracked, and no matter how much you try to repair it, the scars remain. There is also the reality that trust, once broken, rarely returns in the same form. A person who has been betrayed may choose to forgive, but they will never forget. They will always carry that wound, even if it is hidden beneath a smile. They may still wish you well, but they will no longer confide in you the way they once did. And over time, you will realize that the betrayal did not just cost them, it cost you too. You lost something that cannot be bought, cannot be forced, and cannot be easily regained. Because trust, once shattered, is never the same again. Karma operates on a law as old as time itself. What you put out into the world will find its way back to you. It doesn't always work immediately, nor does it always return in the way one expects, but it never forgets. When someone betrays a good soul, they may believe they have escaped the consequences. They may feel triumphant, as if they have gained an advantage, outmaneuvered someone, or secured something they desired. But what they fail to understand is that the universe has a balance sheet, and every action has a corresponding reaction. Betrayal is not a one-time event. It sets forces into motion that eventually come full circle. A person with a good heart often forgives, but forgiveness does not erase what has been done. It does not undo the pain, nor does it change the fact that trust was broken. A good soul may walk away without seeking revenge, but that does not mean they are the ones who suffer most in the long run. The betrayer carries the weight of their actions whether they acknowledge it or not. At first, they may not feel the impact. Life may continue as usual, and they may even believe they have won. But karma is patient. It waits, and it always finds the right moment to remind them of the choices they made. The consequences of betrayal often manifest in unexpected ways. Sometimes it comes through personal loss. The very things they took for granted begin to slip away. Relationships that once felt secure suddenly feel hollow. The people they relied on begin to distance themselves, sensing an unspoken dishonesty that lingers. Other times it comes through self-inflicted torment. The mind has a way of replaying the past, no matter how much one tries to bury it. In quiet moments, when the distractions fade, the memory of the betrayal resurfaces. Regret creeps in. The realization of what was lost becomes clearer, and the guilt, though once ignored, becomes impossible to silence. Life also has a way of putting people in the very situations they once created for others. The betrayer often finds themselves betrayed in return. Not necessarily by the same person, but by someone else, in a way they never expected. They experience firsthand the pain they once caused, and in that moment, they understand what they had done. It is in those moments that karma reveals itself most powerfully, not through punishment, but through perspective. The universe teaches lessons not through words, but through experience. No one truly escapes the weight of their actions. Some try to justify what they did, convincing themselves it was necessary, that it was the right thing to do at the time. But deep down, there is always a knowing, a recognition that something was lost that day. Not just the trust of another, but a part of themselves. Because karma never forgets, and it never lets anyone forget either. Guilt is an invisible weight that never truly lifts. When a person betrays someone with a good soul, they might believe they can move forward without consequence, that time will erase what they have done, or that their actions were justified. But guilt has a way of settling in the corners of the mind, lying dormant until the right moment arrives. It doesn't always strike immediately. Sometimes, in the rush of gain or relief from escaping accountability, the betrayer feels nothing at all. They convince themselves that they were right, that it was necessary, that they had no other choice. But the truth cannot be silenced forever. Eventually it catches up, and when it does, it lingers like an unwanted shadow. The burden of guilt does not announce itself with grand gestures. It creeps in quietly. A familiar scent, a certain place, a passing memory. Small things begin to remind them of the person they hurt. They recall the trust that was once there, the warmth of a bond that no longer exists. The eyes that once looked at them with certainty and are now filled with distance, or worse, nothing at all. These realizations strike unexpectedly, often at moments of solitude when there is no one to distract them from their own thoughts. What makes this weight so unforgiving is that it is self-inflicted. Unlike external punishment, which can be faced and endured, guilt comes from within, and there is no escaping it. A person can avoid the one they betrayed, they can run to new relationships, they can pretend it never happened. But the mind is not so easily fooled. In the dead of night, when distractions fade and silence takes over, the mind revisits the past. It replays the moment of betrayal, not with the justifications that were once used to excuse it, but with the clarity of hindsight, the realization of what was lost, what was broken, and what will never be the same again begins to sink in. Guilt also transforms the way a person sees themselves. Before the betrayal, they may have viewed themselves as someone good, someone honorable, someone deserving of trust. But after breaking that trust, that self-pitying begins to crack. They start to wonder if they are truly the person they once believed themselves to be. And this internal conflict does not just affect their relationship with the one they betrayed, it affects their relationships with others as well. A guilty conscience breeds insecurity, and insecurity leads to doubt. They begin to question whether others see through them, whether they are truly cared for, or whether they are merely tolerated. The weight of guilt does not fade with time. It only grows heavier when left unaddressed. A person can build new relationships, seek new experiences, and bury themselves in distractions, but the past has a way of resurfacing when they least expect it. The mind, no matter how much it tries to forget, always remembers. And the heaviest burdens are the ones carried in silence. When a person betrays a good soul, they are not just losing a relationship. They are losing something far more valuable: genuine connection. In a world where trust is fragile and people often wear masks, finding someone who is sincere, loyal, and truly invested in your well-being is rare. A good soul does not offer their loyalty to just anyone. They give it wholeheartedly, expecting nothing but honesty and respect in return. They see past flaws, forgive mistakes, and stand by you in ways that most would not. But once that connection is broken, once that trust is shattered, there is no going back to the way things once were. A person who betrays someone with a pure heart may initially believe they can replace what they lost. They convince themselves that relationships are replaceable, that new friendships, new loves, or new opportunities will fill the void. But what they fail to realize is that not all connections are the same. A good soul brings a level of authenticity that is hard to find. They care deeply, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely want the best for you. They listen when no one else does, support you when no one else will, and believe in you even when you struggle to believe in yourself. Losing that kind of connection is not just a temporary loss, it is an irreplaceable one. The absence of that person begins to be felt. In moments of difficulty, when the world turns cold and indifferent, the betrayer will remember the warmth they once had. They will recall the unwavering support, the rare kind of loyalty that stood firm even when circumstances were difficult. But by then, it will be too late. The person they betrayed may still exist, but the version of them that once offered unconditional love and trust is gone. Even if the betrayed individual chooses to forgive, they will never be the same. The way they once looked at the betrayer, with trust, admiration, and certainty, will change. They may still be kind, but there will be hesitation where there was once openness. They may still speak, but the conversations will lack the depth they once had. The easy comfort, the unspoken understanding, the silent bond that made them feel like home, that will never return. And the loss of a genuine connection is something that cannot be measured until it is gone. The betrayer may surround themselves with new people, but they will soon realize that most relationships are built on convenience, not deep understanding. They will notice that others may be present in good times, but absent in bad. They will see that loyalty is not as common as they once assumed, and when they need someone to truly see them, to stand by them without conditions, to believe in them without doubt, they will find themselves alone. Because the connection they once had, the one they took for granted, is no longer theirs to claim, and some losses are impossible to replace. A good soul, when betrayed, does not always react with anger or retaliation. They do not scream, seek revenge, or try to destroy the one who hurt them. Instead, they retreat into silence. They withdraw in a way that is both haunting and profound. This is not because they are weak, but because they understand something most people do not. Some wounds cannot be fought, only endured. They carry their pain differently. Not through loud words or dramatic actions, but through quiet distance. And that silence, that absence, is often the most devastating punishment of all. The betrayer may initially feel relieved that there was no confrontation, no major fallout. They may mistake the lack of reaction as acceptance, believing that the betrayer has gone unnoticed, or that it did not affect the good soul as deeply as expected. But what they fail to see is the weight of that silence. It is not forgiveness, nor is it forgetfulness. It is the quiet realization that fighting for someone who did not value them is a battle not worth waging. And so the good soul simply leaves, taking with them all the warmth, loyalty, and love they once gave so freely. For the one who betrayed them, this silence becomes deafening. At first, they may enjoy their freedom, believing they have escaped consequence. But as time passes, they begin to notice the difference. The messages that once came in abundance stop. The concern that once surrounded them vanishes. The unwavering presence of someone who truly cared is no longer there. And slowly, they begin to understand the depth of what they have lost. Unlike anger, which is temporary, silence lingers. It is in the moments of solitude, in the quiet nights, in the spaces where the good soul once existed. The betrayer might find themselves reaching for their phone, wanting to hear the voice that once reassured them, only to realize that it is no longer theirs to hear. They may look around in times of hardship, expecting the comfort that was always there, only to find that they now stand alone. The absence of a good soul is not just a physical one. It is an emotional void that no one else can fill. This kind of loss does not happen all at once. It is slow, creeping, and relentless. The betrayer will try to move on, seeking connection elsewhere, but something will always feel missing. They will meet new people, form new relationships, but they will never find the same depth, the same sincerity, the same unwavering support. Because once a good soul leaves, they do not return, they do not beg, they do not chase, and they do not look back. And when realization finally dawns, when the weight of that silence becomes too much to bear, it is too late. The damage has been done. The good soul has moved on, not with anger, not with hatred, but with the quiet strength of someone who knows their worth. And the one who betrayed them is left to sit in the silence they created, forced to live with the emptiness of what once was. A betrayer may believe they can escape the consequences of their actions, that life will move on and the weight of their betrayal will fade with time. They may convince themselves that what they did was necessary, justified, or even insignificant. But no matter how far they run, no matter how much they try to rationalize their choices, peace will always elude them. Betrayal is not just an action, it is a wound inflicted not only on another but on the betrayer's own soul. And the truth about wounds is that they do not simply disappear. They fester, they linger, and they resurface when least expected. At first, a betrayer may feel relief. They may think they have avoided consequences, that life continues as usual, that no great loss has been suffered. But deep inside, something shifts. Even if they do not immediately recognize it, a part of them begins to change. The knowledge of what they have done stays with them, buried beneath distractions, excuses, and justifications. It may be ignored for a while, but it never truly fades. Because betrayal is not just an act against another, it is an act against oneself. One of the first signs of this inner turmoil is the inability to find true contentment. Moments that should bring joy feel hollow. Achievements that once carried meaning feel tainted. In the quietest moments, when the noise of the world dies down, the mind begins to speak. It whispers reminders of what was lost, of the trust that was broken, of the good soul that no longer looks at them the same way. And the betrayer realizes that the peace they once took for granted has been replaced by a constant, gnawing unrest. Relationships suffer as well. Once someone has betrayed a good soul, they start to see the world differently. Not through the lens of trust, but through suspicion and insecurity. They wonder if others will do to them what they once did to someone else. They become guarded, unable to fully trust, because deep down, they know what people are capable of. They have seen it in themselves. This doubt begins to corrode their interactions, making every connection feel fragile, temporary, and transactional. The past does not remain in the past. It finds its way back, sometimes in the form of regret, sometimes through the pain of being betrayed in return. Life has a way of ensuring that lessons are learned, and betrayal is often repaid in ways that cut just as deeply. The moment will come when the betrayer stands in the place of the one they once hurt, feeding the very pain they caused, and in that moment they will understand. No matter how much they try to move forward, to pretend it never happened, to build a new life, the shadow of their actions follows them, because peace is not something that can be forced or faked. It is something that comes from within, and a soul burdened by betrayal will never truly rest. Betraying a good soul is never just a momentary mistake. It is a decision that carries lasting consequences. It is not simply about breaking trust. It is about losing something rare, something pure, something that cannot be replaced once it is gone. The pain of the betrayed may heal, but the betrayer is left with wounds that time cannot erase. Guilt lingers, karma returns, and the silence of the one they wronged becomes louder than any words ever could. The greatest price of betrayal is not just the loss of a relationship, but the loss of peace, of self-respect, of the ability to trust and be trusted. A good soul, once betrayed, does not seek revenge. They simply walk away, and in doing so they take with them everything the betrayer once took for granted. The warmth, the loyalty, the unwavering presence, gone, never to return the same way again. So, if you're ever faced with the choice to betray someone who has only ever wished you well, pause. Consider what you stand to lose, not just in them, but in yourself. Because some losses are permanent, and some mistakes can never be undone. Good luck on your journey, may you choose wisely, and may you always value the good souls in your life. Thank you.